And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thursday morning's flying weather graphic here showing increasing IFR up here to the northwest. They're spreading into the western Brooks Range and trailing back off to the southwest. VFR, the remainder of interior Alaska here, southeast Bering Sea, into the Gulf. A little bit of marginal VFR, that weak system farther to the south there, mostly VFR for the southeast coast. And then for the afternoon, big increase in the IFR here as that storm in front pushes into the northwest part of the state, tracking eastward here and spreading IFR along the Brooks Range, as well as the north slope in the Arctic coast, back down in across St. Lawrence Island, marginal VFR off to the southwest, spreading into Adak, southern Alaska, southeast Bering Sea here, staying in the VFR zone, as well as the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. And then for Friday morning, this area shifts eastward and southward down to the Alaska Range here, and not much getting, at least by this point, not much getting south of there or east of the mountains, with IFR from, looks like the Kuskokwim Delta right on up into the Seward Peninsula, as well as the central and eastern Arctic coast, improving back here to the northwest behind the system, and marginal VFR down to the Pribilofs, but mostly Aleutians staying VFR right across the Copper River Basin here, Gulf of Alaska, and the Panhandle. And then for the afternoon, Friday, that system moves off to the east here, so this area of IFR and marginal VFR starts to diminish and fade away slowly here along the Alaska Range up into the 40-mile country, and also some IFR lingering there in the eastern Arctic coast into the North Slope, and a patch out here along the southwest coast right into the Kuskokwim Mountains or so, with marginal VFR for the Kuskokwim Valley, and also across Norton Sound there, and down to the Pribilofs. But the Aleutians are all VFR, Bristol Bay, southern Alaska here, Kenai Peninsula, and the southeast coast, as well as the Gulf of Alaska stay VFR. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, starting out marginal VFR early on, but rapidly becoming IFR during the morning through the afternoon. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR for rainy, windy, and Isabel staying VFR, as well as Mentasta. Tanita, another VFR day there for that pass, as well as Portage and Chilkoot and White staying VFR. Freezing levels here at the surface, south of the Alaska Peninsula and south of Middleton Island, down across the Queen Charlotte's there, but out here to the west with that southwest flow here, as that storm in front, ahead of the front with the southwesterly winds there. We've got 2,000 feet pulling all the way up, almost to St. Lawrence Island, 8,000 feet back out over the western Aleutians. And pretty good push of moisture here coming into the western Arctic coast, right on down into the Seward Peninsula there. So look for considerable moderate icing with that frontal system there along the front into the northwest part of the state, and then trailing back out to the southwest there, and then some heavier icing starting to show up there just west of the Shimei-Attu area. Otherwise icing free elsewhere. And for the jet stream, high pressure here centered just north of the central Aleutians. Strong jet coming over the top of that ridge, still coming down out of the northeast at 110 knots here, right through the central interior, Kenai Peninsula into Kodiak Island area. And of course, this jet out here carrying the storm system eastward and all that moisture. And then a sharp trough here from right around Yakutat southwestward, and strong westerlies flowing in across Dixon Entrance at 155 knots. 9,000 feet here, lighter winds over the Panhandle there, maybe up to 35 knots. Otherwise northeast here, northeast 50 knots right across Prince William Sound, 55 knots there close to Kodiak Island. High pressure here over the just west of the Pribilofs. Strong westerly winds there, driving that moisture eastward there, 50 to 75 knots coming across the Chukchi Sea, and southerlies there at about 55 knots, turning southwest at 60 knots over the northwest Bering. 3,000 foot winds here, strongest here over the western North Slope and along the Brooks Range tomorrow, up to 65 knots, maybe 50 knots blowing across Norton Bay, and 40-knot northerlies there, gap winds coming out of the, actually all the North Gulf Coast here, especially Prince William Sound, Valdez 40 knots Kodiak Island area. Otherwise, not light winds over the southeast interior, and not too bad for the panhandle. Turbulence-wise, mechanical turbulence still pretty likely here, moderate mechanical for the Prince William Sound area, right along the North Gulf Coast into the northern panhandle. And then with the strong winds with the system up here, widespread area of considerable moderate turbulence for the entire North Slope, Brooks Range, Arctic coast, right on down into the Seward Peninsula, southward into the northern Kuskokwim Delta area. And light to isolated moderate starting to show up here out over the western Aleutians.